So here's the thing. Everyone talks about neurodiversity. It's a bit of a buzz term. Like, what does that actually mean? So I wanted to break that down without the jargon and without the shame, because when we think of the term neurodiversity, we think of that there's something wrong. And actually, there's not. Because whether you're born neurodivergent, became neurodivergent through life, or you're raising someone who's neurodivergent, this conversation really matters. So if you don't know me, hi, I'm Naomi, emotional mastery expert for neurodiverse mums and their double-digit daughters, whether one or both of them are neurodiverse or there's a diagnosis or not. I support mums to go from chaos, firefighting and complete overwhelm to calm, control and connected with themselves and with their children. If you ever felt like you're walking on eggshells, burning out or questioning if you're doing it all wrong, please know you are not alone. So I wanted to dig into the real meaning behind neurodiversity. The term neurodiversity simply means the natural diversity of the human brain and mind. It's about different ways of thinking, learning, feeling, and experiencing the world. It's a concept that acknowledges that there is no single correct way for a brain to work, and that embraces the differences between individuals and values them as diverse people. It's not a label, it's not a diagnosis, it's a fact of human existence. Everyone's brain is unique, just like your fingerprint. Even if you are an identical twin, no two fingerprints are the same. And because of that, there is no definition of normal capabilities for the human brain. But when we talk about neurodiversity, we mean our brains work significantly different to what's considered typical. So the word neurodiversity is also a social justice movement created by Judy Singer, an Australian sociologist, back in 1998. She advocates for the inclusion and acceptance of individuals regardless of their neurological differences. In essence, neurodiversity celebrates the uniqueness of each individual person's brain and encourages society to value and accommodate these differences, promoting a more inclusive and non-discriminatory world. But we actually all know that that's not necessarily the case. And having a better understanding ourselves of what neurodiversity is and how it impacts us will help us to be able to spread that to those that are teaching and in professions where they don't necessarily have that understanding. And those of us that are with neurodiversities, we are the experts because we live with this every single day. So I think it's really important for us to understand ourselves first and then be able to share that understanding with others. And part of that understanding comes with knowing how neurodiversity is kind of an umbrella term, and then it's broken down into layers. So there's 3 types of neurodiversity. So there's 3 main ways that somebody can be neurodivergent, or three types of neurodiversity. So firstly, we have innate neurodiversity. That's when you're born with being neurodivergent. It's just how your brain is wired. It's influenced by genetics and early brain development, and it's lifelong. Think of things like autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, Tourette's, or genetic conditions such as Down syndrome or Prader-Willi syndrome. It's not something to be fixed, it's your natural neurotype. And understanding that that's your natural neurotype and it's not something to be fixed, you need to find ways that work better for your brain development and your brain neurological pathways, is how we understand neurodiversity as a center for ourselves. We then move on to acquired neurodiversity. And that's when your brain or your nervous system changes after birth. This can happen through trauma, injury, illness, or life experiences. So things like PTSD, traumatic brain injury, stroke, dementia, they all change how your brain processes information and emotions. And that's what we mean by acquired neurodivergence. It's something that has happened to you after you was born, and it could be even in early years, but it's something that has happened after the development within the womb. I know it's not just me saying this about the acquired neurodiversity. This is science-backed. Trauma and injury literally reshape the brain's wiring, especially in areas such as the amygdala, hippocampus, and the prefrontal cortex. So when we look at neurodiversity and break down the different types of neurodiversity, you can see that actually a lot of the population probably have some kind of neurodiversity at one point or other in their life. We then move on to the mixed neurodiversity, and it kind of is what it says on the tin, which is honestly most of us. Maybe you were born with ADHD or autism and have experienced trauma or chronic stress later in life or in earlier life. That combination creates a neuro profile, part innate, part acquired. Your regulation system, your sensory threshold, your emotional processing are shaped by both your original wiring and the life events that have changed it. That's why two people can have the complete same label, but totally different lived experiences and totally different ways of approaching the world around them. Because our environmental factors are what make up a big part of how we react and respond to any situations, neurodiverse or neurotypical. That's just environmental factors that come into it. We then kind of get into it a little bit more complex side of it. So under the umbrella of neurodiversity, you have the three types of neurodiversity, but then you also have the three categories of neurodiversity. So these are kind of how professionals talk about neurodiversity and how they factor into different ways that professionals use the understanding of neurodiversity. So firstly, we have clinical neurodiversity. This is the medical side. It's where the diagnosis, the assessments, and the research comes from. It includes all developmental and neurological differences, both innate and acquired. So things like autism, ADHD, dyslexia, brain injuries, trauma responses, and all things that show up in the clinical world. So anything to do with a medical diagnosis, that comes under clinical neurodiversity. So then we have applied neurodiversity. This is the social side. This is where we apply neurodiversity paradigm in real life. So it's inclusion, it's the advocacy, it's the coaching, it's the neurodiverse friendly workplaces, the parenting support. It's about adapting the environment instead of trying to fix the person. Because ultimately, no person needs to be fixed unless there's a broken bone or an organ that isn't working. When we look at the neurological differences that we have, there isn't, in my opinion, there isn't a reason to fix anything. There is always a learning or a way to understand it better, to then be able to use that with how you process the world around you and bring that back into how that centers with your nervous system. Then we go on to the applied. No, I've just done applied. Yep. We go on to the acquired neurodiversity. There's too many A's in with the neurodiversity. I get muddled. And this is the one where it overlaps, where it's lived experience, illness, or trauma that changes the brain. So it reminds us that neurodiversity isn't static. it evolves. Just like everything with life, there's evolution. And that's the same when it comes to neurodiversity. When we acquire neurodiversity, it's because there has been things that have happened in our life experiences, trauma, brain injury, illness, that actually cause the nervous system to reshape and also the neurological pathways to reshape. And that's, so I'm just reading my notes. The nervous system can be reshaped by both pain and healing. So as I just said, that actually we look at things in a holistic view when we're looking at acquired neurodiversity, because it's the whole world and centered around us. So the big picture, when we put all of this together, neurodiversity isn't about who's broken or who needs fixing. It's about where we honour the full range of human wiring. Some of us were born different. Some of us became different through life. Some of us are a bit of both. And that goes for every entity of the human being. Some of us have blue eyes, some of us have green eyes, some of us are male, some of us are female. And that's just our genetic makeup. It's the same when it comes to neurodiversity. It's about the neurological pathways in your mind. And everybody, as I said, has a different way of their pathways being created. And all of us deserve an environment that sees us, supports us, and doesn't shame us for how our brain works. So as a neurodiverse mum raising a neurodiverse daughter, I've learned this. Emotional mastery and self-understanding starts with acceptance. Not with what's wrong, but just what is. I just want that to sink in a little bit. Not looking at there is something wrong with the person or with yourself, just understanding that there is a difference. When we try to stop fitting into that normal and start learning our own wiring, everything shifts. We regulate differently. We parent differently. We connect differently. And we teach that difference to our children. Neurodiversity isn't a diagnosis, it's a reality. And when we learn to live in alignment with that instead of against it, that's where the true magic happens. So, whether you identify as neurodiverse or you're raising somebody who's neurodiverse, you being in this conversation is really, really important for me. Neurodiversity is the language of humanity, and understanding it is key to connection, compassion, and change. If this hits for you, please drop me a comment, share your experience, or come and join my community over on school, Mums Embracing Neurodiversity. Because this is where we rewrite the rules together and understand that neurodiversity is something to be celebrated and not to be shamed.